Hello and welcome back to Insurtech UK's podcast called Kicking the Tires. Today I'm joined by Matt Hodges-Long from TrackMyRisks. Good morning, Matt. How are you?
Good morning, Sam. Very well, very well.
Good. Matt, for those who don't know, could you explain what TrackMyRisks is and does, please?
Yeah, so TrackMyRisks is a SaaS platform, software as a service, and we help companies manage governance, risk, and compliance. So that's all their background compliance and regulatory information that needs to be managed and often gets overlooked. So yes, we make that beautiful as a process.
So as I like to think, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, the business stuff, the grown-up stuff that you have to do in a business.
That's right. Yeah, it's the stuff that doesn't usually generate a lot of excitement unless there's a problem. And then at that point, everybody needs that information, and you better hope you've got it, and you better hope it lines up and proves your case in a court of law or with the regulator. So yeah, that's the challenge, is keeping that running and up to date when the attention of the world isn't on that information. So it's a background process, but absolutely necessary.
So would you say most people tend to keep the information we're talking about, say fire hazard reports or whatever, certificates, disparately separated all over the place in spreadsheets, on sticky notes, in A4-leaf Archer files? Is that where people generally keep the stuff today?
Yeah, it's usually sort of spread out in sort of departmental silos in a larger company. So you might have a maintenance department that's keeping, things that relate to maintenance or fire safety, and you've got other people in a compliance department dealing with regulatory, financial conduct authority information or whatever. And then some of it will probably be scattered around consultants and contractors, third parties. And it does tend to be a bit haphazard, and everybody sort of thinks other people are doing what they should be doing, which in a lot of cases they are, and in some cases they're not. And it only really becomes apparent when we have a need to say we need to pull everything together because, we're being audited. And then you start finding there's gaps, or, you've had an incident and the health and safety executive come in or whatever, and start probing and asking those detailed questions. And then everyone starts blaming each other. So our view is that really all of that pertinent information for an organization should be in a system of record, which effectively is the definitive source of the truth. And then it becomes very easy to say, is it there or is it not there? If it is there, is it fit for purpose? That's the secondary question. But yeah, first thing is getting everything together, right, and exposing it and making it transparent.
So how did TrackMyRisks come about as an idea for you? I mean, what was the embryonic idea?
So I think it's about 20 years plus probably of
so an overnight decision, really. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, we rushed into it. It was sort of started off for me really way back in the day when I worked in construction, having a very near miss incident on a site that I ran. Luckily nobody got hurt. There was lots of property damage, and then at that point lots of questions were being asked about where's the risk assessment, where's this, where's that. Didn't have most of it. And then latterly I had a startup business, and somebody that worked as a consultant took me to an employment tribunal and tried to assert that he was an employee rather than a contractor. And again, I won that one, but, if they had have decided that he was actually an employee, then I wouldn't have had any of the paperwork around his dismissal. So it would have been a technical breach anyway. And just as life has gone on in business, you just find more and more about people just are inherently disorganized. Not in a bad way, but you've got business to carry on with. You've got to bill people, you've got to get the money in, you've got to sell, you've got to do PR, etc. And managing governance, risk, and compliance is kind of a bit of a backroom activity that doesn't get people out of bed in the morning generally. So if we can do things to make that much easier and structured and almost automated, then more people are going to comply with doing things in the right way. So
is GDPR now playing a big part in getting people to wake up to this whole space of governance and, saying, oh, actually, we need to start thinking a bit more about it? Has that been a positive or negative effect for you?
It's been positive, not probably as transformational as we thought it would be short term, but generally I think it's the whole area of record keeping and being able to evidence doing something. So, for example, a privacy impact assessment that you would need to do to evidence compliance with GDPR and Data Protection Act. That's a thing. That's an asset. That's something that somebody in the future might turn around and say, well, show me the privacy impact assessment that you produced 4 years ago. And then it's a question of saying, well, that was on the server that we decommissioned and we forgot to back it up and we did this and we did that. Whereas really that should be published into the system of record. and then kept, we believe, unless there's a reason for erasure to do it, for forever. If somebody might call that back from you. In the same way in insurance, you've got to keep your employer's liability insurance cover, evidence for, I think it's 40 years. Well, can you find that from 20 years ago? Where the heck is it? So by publishing it into a system of record where it's stored securely and version controlled, then who knows what you're going to be asked for in the future, but you can go back and find it and prove who's interacted with it along the way.
Okay. And for people who don't know, how's the service delivered? So if I wanted to come to TrackMyRisks.com and I wanted to sign up, how do I do it? Is it a downloadable app? Is it a SaaS platform? Is it, describe a little bit about the platform or the service that you provide.
Yeah, so it's a SaaS platform, software as a service. So you don't need to download anything. Everything is taking place in our cloud. That's where we store all of the underlying documentation that's uploaded into each customer's environment. So it's all managed by us, supported by us. So literally, it's a email address and a password to log in to access the information. In terms of how those environments are structured, you can either buy an environment directly from us, or sign up to one and load it with your own information, or you can. And the way most people do is they have an environment deployed to them by one of our reseller or distributor partners. So that might be TrackMyRisks might be bolted into your insurance policy. It could be a membership benefit of joining a trade association or whatever. Working with a health and safety consultant, that sort of thing. And then at which point, rather than them emailing information back and forth to you, they would publish that into your TrackMyRisks account, and then you can build on top of that with other areas of the business. So the idea is that you could put everything from across the enterprise into one place, but it often helps if it's a structured environment that you're delivered in the first place, because then you just fill in the headings. You don't have to sort of look at a blank screen and say, what should I put in here? So yeah, we can provide templated environments like that as well.
So you can go into vertical markets, you can go into SMEs, you can go into enterprise, yeah?
Yeah, anybody. It works best for us from a templating perspective to do lots of companies that are pretty similar or have the same requirements, because then we can design an environment with our customers once, and then we can roll that out to tens, hundreds, thousands, millions of customers that look fairly similar. With and you get real economies of scale from it. Whereas if you do individual companies one by one, then you're always having to sort of build a prototype, if you like.
Yeah.
So we're always looking for something that's repeatable, and over time, we'll be using machine learning, etc., to actually understand where those points of commonality are and start building that content, by machine as opposed to by human being having an intimate understanding of the subject. But we're not there yet. That's a sort of trajectory for us from a development perspective.
And roughly how many customers have you got today?
So we've got just under 3,000 live customer accounts on the platform.
Brilliant.
From February last year, so we're pleased with that. We want to add noughts onto it. So we tend to like the discussions that are looking at adding thousands rather than tens, but we'll take anything. We're a startup, but yeah, we really do want to. Our belief is that every organisation should have a system of record for its governance, risk and compliance, because it's that important. And we would like to be a lead provider in that marketplace, so that sort of leads you to the point of where the numbers can go with this sort of proposition.
And for those who are more interested, how are you funded? Where are you in their growth cycle of funding?
Okay, so we've completed 2 rounds of seed funding, around about £1 million. We are looking at another funding round now. We're having some conversations on that, but we don't have to. We're perilously close to breaking even at the moment. So really, it's about getting the right kind of money at the right time on the right terms. And just over the last 6 to 8 months, the terms have got pretty crap from what we've seen. So it's about finding the right kind of investor that sort of aligns with us and not just taking the first person to offer the money. Yes, so that's where we are at the moment. So we're not. We'd like to do it, but we're going to do it on the right terms. We're a risk management business. Well, the last thing we're going to do is shoot ourselves in the foot, hopefully.
Brilliant. We were talking offline earlier about, sadly, Grenfell Tower. And you were saying, had they had something like TrackMyRisks as a solution, it could have helped. Can you give a little bit of background and detail on that, please?
Yeah, so Grenfell, I think most people know, obviously, the Grenfell tragedy is absolutely hideous, but there were, as with all of these large-scale disasters, a bit like Piper Alpha or whatever, there's normally a number of failings along the way that lead to a really dark outcome. One of the major failings at Grenfell was the absence of record keeping relating to that building. So when the fire brigade arrived at the building, they didn't know what they were going into. They didn't know what the evacuation procedures were. They didn't know the plans. They didn't know where all the risers were and gas outlets and utilities, etc. So effectively, the inquiry heard from the fire brigade that all they had to go on was a photograph on a mobile phone of Grenfell Tower before it burst into flames. And that was a photograph that was taken before the combustible cladding was put around the outside. They went in, they were in the dark, and what should have happened apparently is that there should have been a firebox in the reception, which would be a metal fireproof box, I'm hoping, that they could break into, that would have floor plans and evacuation procedures, etc. in it. Anyway, it either wasn't there or they couldn't find it. Literally, I'm looking at that from our perspective saying, well, actually, companies that work with us have all of this information in a digital format, version controlled, single version of the truth, and they can have unlimited permissioning to external parties. So if the management of Grenfell had TrackMyRisks prior to the event and had permissioned that to the fire brigade prior to the fire, then that information would have been available to whoever needed it in real time. Anyway, they didn't, and that didn't happen. But what's actually happened now is that there was a big inquiry afterwards. There's an inquiry ongoing, but there was a report that was written by Dame Judith Hackett, who used to chair the Health and Safety Executive. And one of her key recommendations was that all high-risk residential buildings, like Grenfell, need to have a golden thread of life safety information, which effectively is a system of record by a different name. They haven't gone as far as saying that it needs to be enduring permissions need to be provided to fire brigades and police and other services. That's where we're taking it. So we believe that at the very minimum, all of the buildings like Grenfell should have a system like ours in place. We've offered that to government and we're waiting to hear. So that's kind of where we are with Grenfell.
Wow. Okay. So taking a little look going forward now, I mean, good luck with the Grenfell Tower thing. I wish they'd have TrackMyRisks or a service like it. This is all about data, really, isn't it? I mean, it's data management, data control. With data, there's two elements. Is there anything that you guys are doing in terms of the storage of the data to do with blockchain? And is there anything that you guys are doing in terms of in making the data more intelligent using machine learning? Or AI, as people sometimes like to call it.
Yeah, so taking the blockchain question first. Blockchain has a use. We don't have anything secured on blockchain at the moment. I think in terms of the documentary evidence or files that are uploaded into our platform, they are encrypted and stored within the Amazon environment. The behavioral data, so this is the when was something published, what was it, who did it, who's accessed it, when did they access, when did they download, etc. All of that behavioral stuff, which is effectively gathering everybody's paw prints and evidence on each underlying artifact, which could be fundamental in a court case, which is, not only can I evidence I shared that with you, but I can evidence that you interacted with it 25 times over the 2-year period in question. Therefore, it's untenable to say that you were unaware. Yeah. That kind of information. So at the moment, that is in a what I would call a semi-immutable log at the moment, which is the Amazon date and timestamping, which users cannot interfere with or change. We haven't gone to the step yet of actually then securing that data on blockchain. We haven't had a requirement to do it yet. It's not to say that we couldn't in the future. It's something that we talk about and we come back to. We've resisted the temptation to say, we've got blockchain in our business to put an extra couple of million on the valuation. Maybe we should. So that's the situation with blockchain at the moment. Generally, from an evidential perspective, for example, we don't share links to underlying files to say, come and have a look at this, here's a link. It works through an invitation process where you have to accept and create a user account before you can interact with that content. That's how I know that Sam looked at that or downloaded that file on that date and time, rather than it just being a random link that was sent out to people with no tracking. In terms of machine learning, I think sort of applying some kind of machine learning algorithm to that behavioral data first to actually start to look at, how do large numbers of organizations interact? What do they do around keeping underlying control documents in date? How widely do they share? What times of day, et cetera? And then can we relate any of that back to risk management in terms of companies that behave like this? are X% less likely to claim on that type of insurance policy or default on a loan or provide positive shareholder returns or whatever it is when it comes to, is there a way that I can run a diagnostic on that data and actually see where does an organization rank amongst its peers? So that's all to do with pricing risk, and this is sort of where we lead into the insurance and Insurtech UK, and how data can empower underwriting in the future. How do we put a price on risk, and then correspondingly, how do we use the platform to encourage users of the platform to change their behaviour for the better, to manage their risks more effectively. So we call TrackMyRisks. How do we track all of this and advise and hopefully de-risk businesses in a way that doesn't stop them from operating? If we can manage unnecessary risk out of businesses at scale, then that's a positive for everybody from society downwards.
Okay. Last question, Matt, where do you see TrackMyRisks in, say, the next 5 years? I mean, what's on your horizon?
Scale, number one. Having if we start at the point where we firmly believe that every organisation needs a system of record for its governance, risk and compliance, and we want to be leading in that marketplace, then we need to have a heck of a lot more than 3,000 end user customers on our platform. As we start building that up, I see that then using intelligence and working with our partners to actually provide products, services, advice that is going to help those end users effectively be less accident prone, get sued less or fined less by regulators, stay in business longer, stop killing people as often or maiming them, you name it, across all these areas of risk, breaching data, all of these things can be addressed with the right controls. It will never remove all of it, but it will certainly reduce the frequency and the impact. And then, really that's us doing our job. That's where we see ourselves going in terms of this business, and that's the opportunity for us.
Matt Hodges-Long, CEO of TrackMyRisks. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.